Hello and welcome to our program Where God Weeps, a program where we talk about the situation of the suffering church around the world. Nigeria is called the Giant of Africa, the most populous nation in Africa and the 7th most populous nation in the world. The population of Nigeria is divided in two, the Christians in the south and central parts of the country and the Muslims in the north. To tell us more about the life of Catholics there, it's my great privilege to welcome Father Mark Nzukwin, working in the Jalingo diocese in Nigeria. Father Mark, thank you for being with us here today on our program.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Father, a little bit to yourself, your story. Where did you grow up? In what kind of an environment did you grow up? If you could just give us a little bit of a picture.
I was born on the 15th of July 1969 to a little village called Jalingo in Nzukwin local government, Taraba, northeast of Nigeria.
And what's the topography? What's the geography? Is it dry land? Is it farming? Is it what are we talking about?
In Taraba state, my own state, the northern part is a bit dry, but in the southern part where I come from, it's a bit greeny.
And how about the family? You come from a large family. How many brothers and sisters are you?
I have, we are seven.
Seven.
Born to my parents. Mm-hmm. 4 boys and 3 girls. I'm in the middle. So it's like 3 before me and 3 after me.
Yes. It's the best place in the family.
It's the best place.
I'm also a middle child. I know it's a good place. The parents kind of lose you. A question to the Catholic faith in your family. How did the Catholic faith come in? Was it your parents who converted, or was it already in the faith in the family already previous generations?
Actually, my parents converted to Catholicism.
Were they traditional religion, or what were they practicing before they converted?
No, that was a traditional religion. Yeah, before they converted to Christianity. And
what inspired them? Was it a missionary? What gave them the impetus to convert?
Actually, the missionaries, the Holy Ghost missionaries. They visited, they got attracted to the faith. And my father was one of the first who actually embraced the faith fully, and to some extent suffered for the faith, because the Protestant missionaries came earlier than the Catholic missionaries. So when the few, that is the kind of my dad now, accepted the Catholic faith, then they suffered some persecution from the majority of our people who are Protestants.
And what kind of persecution would you have been obliged to leave the village, or how would that take form?
No, at times verbal.
Verbal.
Yeah, speaking against the faith and those who accept the faith, at times distancing them, and at times also discriminating against them when it comes to certain issues.
In terms of work, or how would that be?
Yeah, in terms of not really work, because they come from an agrarian area, but when it comes to like politics.
Okay.
That's politics, something that matters, decisions that were
needed to be taken.
Needed to be taken, they were always discriminated against.
Was your father an example for you?
Great example.
Yes. Was he the one that guided you to your vocation, or was there another influence there?
He played a great role in terms of his disposition to the faith, and in terms of his own personality also. My father was such a very simple person. He never had problem with anybody in the village, and whenever there was problem in the family, once he called a meeting, and then there was peace. So I learned a lot from him. He never lived in a modern house.
No? How did?
By choice.
How would you have lived? Was it a hut, or how was it your life?
Yeah, a hut. But he built one, but he never lived in. He preferred to live a very simple life, but used his little meager resources to train all of us in school.
To educate you all?
Yes. for him, that was the best legacy he could leave for his children.
Did he see your ordination?
He did.
Did he?
He did.
What a joy.
Yeah. Even though initially, when I finished my secondary school, people persuaded him never to allow me to go to the seminary.
Really?
They said, you have a good result, your son has good result, let him go to other universities and get a good job. So that a bit influenced him. So he neither said yes to no to my calling. But eventually when I was made a deacon and he made an appearance there, so he loved it. And during ordination, he had to present me to the bishop.
It must have been a proud moment.
Yeah, definitely. He was so happy with my mom then.
Father, a bit to your tribe, I would like to discuss a little bit about the ethnic groups and the challenges, let's say the positive and negative challenges of ethnic groups in Nigeria. Can you tell us a little bit about your particular ethnic group?
My ethnic group is a small one, the Kutef tribe in southern Taraba state of Nigeria, in the local government called Taikum. It's a small group.
Okay.
But the general situation of the ethnic groups is that there are so many values, and then when it comes to the culture of hospitality, togetherness, sharing. But then the negative side of it is that at times there's too much attachment to the group, to the exclusion of the others. I think that has been the bane of most of the problems and conflicts we face in Nigeria.
I think there are over 500 different ethnic groups in Nigeria. Has this splintered the country and made it difficult for national unity, or how is this question?
Actually, when it comes to the area of culture, we rather see it in a positive light. Anytime there's a festival organized and the different groups come and they display, everybody love it. Yeah. And Nigerians will love to be together. But when it comes to other issues, political issues, well, in terms of political issues, there's no so much attachment to the particular tribe, but rather the question of region, the north and the south.
Okay. Is it then between Christian and Muslim, or is it just north and south?
It's north and south. Religion comes in only as a cover, especially for the northerners. Maybe the Muslims use religion as a tool for securing political position. But the problem is not really religion. No, it's political. The struggle it's political, yeah, for power. Then at times they use religion.
Christians across Nigeria are becoming the victims of increasing violence. On Christmas Day 2011 in Madala, about 40 kilometers from the capital of Abuja, a car loaded with explosives was detonated just outside the grounds of St. Teresa's Catholic Church. 44 people were killed, over 80 were left injured.
There were a lot of people, and some of them were coming with some item for me to bless: rosary, crucifix, olive oil. As soon as I finished blessings, I was about entering the house. I heard just a loud sound. Twice.
The bombing, one of the deadliest in recent times to scar Africa's most populous nation, was carried out by the extremist militant Islamic group Boko Haram. This wave of terror, which is becoming more audacious and frequent, threatens to drive Christians from their places of worship. In the city of Jos, the Church of Christ in Nigeria headquarters were devastated in February 2012 by a suicide bomber.
When you look up there, you see some of the pieces of the scattered car and the remaining engine of the car there. He was aiming at the congregation, and if God had not protected, it could have pulled this building down, and people could just have been buried down here.
Nigeria's Boko Haram, which in the Hausa language means Western education is forbidden, is a vague and undefined militant Islamic group with origins in the northern city of Maiduguri. At its outset in 2002, Boko Haram preached a doctrine of rejection of all things Western that, as they claimed, led to the country's social injustices. By 2009, the group's actions turned ugly. Boko Haram began a campaign of terror with assassinations and senseless suicide bombings, resulting in over 1,000 deaths. Police stations, churches, markets, schools, and even the UN headquarters in the capital Abuja have been attacked. To combat the spread of violence, the government has imposed a curfew in certain areas. Roadblocks and checkpoints have become an everyday experience for both Christians and Muslims. There is growing fear that Boko Haram is networking outside Nigeria's borders as their attacks become more deadly.
We know from intelligence reports that this Boko Haram group has been receiving training from groups outside of Nigeria, like the Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb and also the Al-Shabaab in Somalia. They have fraternal links with these terrorist, fundamentalist Islamic groups. The trainings they got are professional trainings, how to make the bombs. Nobody would have taught them that in Nigeria.
The minority Christian population in the predominantly Muslim north, whereas stricter Sharia law is enforced, is increasingly the victim of threats and violence perpetrated by Boko Haram and its supporters. Entire families have been forced to flee their villages, leaving their property and lives behind.
Christians are being targeted and shot at. Sometimes they follow the Christians in their homes and shoot at them. The children you see me with know what a bomb is, know what gunshots are.
Amid this devastating wave of persecution, Catholic leaders have called for justice and order. They seek dialogue between the religious communities in the hope of mending the relations torn apart by terror. They want to avoid letting a violent minority draw the nation's attention to religious differences that to them are not the source of the conflicts at all. After the Christmas Day blasts in Madala, a centre for counselling and dialogue has been created by the diocese.
There is no revenge. Rather, we should pray for the conversion of the people who the perpetrators, as well as those who are financiers, who support this group called Boko Haram. We're in discussion to see how we can build small units of interreligious dialogue, interfaith dialogue, Muslims as well as Christians. And when we talk of Christians, we talk of other denominations, with the Catholic Church being the leader and bringing our brothers and sisters together. So my prayer is that the good Lord will rest the souls of all those who died, because I consider them martyrs. They died for Christ.
Father, Africans are a people of faith. That is, it is part of the rhythm of life. And we in the West have often, or in the process often, of abandoning our faith. That is, living a secular society without any faith. How do you, again, prepare your people to know what is right, and especially the young people?
Okay, in terms of faith, we thank God that our people are still keeping the faith. It's not really because of their own situation of poverty, but because they have that deep religious sense. In fact, even with the challenges we're facing in northern Nigeria, people still keep their faith. In fact, people even go to the church now more than before.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that? Why?
Yeah, because they feel that, okay, the faith is now being challenged. Before now, they thought it was just a convention. I go to church because I have to go. But now they know that you have to go to church because they know that the faith gives you something that can sustain you in moments of crisis. So they go there, they learn more about the Word of God, they receive the sacraments, they reconcile themselves. And for them now, this is a value. It's something that they never really thought of before, that these things are really very important. And then the prayer. Now people don't just ask the priest to pray for them. They also learn how to pray. So, like going to church now, like in northern Nigeria, is like going to church like putting your life on the line.
Why?
Because
of the
anything
environment.
can happen. And at the same time, the people still go.
Because of the challenge
Yeah,
with,
because
with
of
the
challenge of
radical,
the
with the
environment.
radical
Yes.
Muslim groups.
Because
No?
of the radical Muslim group, yeah. And yet, the people go to the church even more than before, despite the challenges. So somehow, I think the crisis is also helping the people to deepen their faith. And thank God with this year of faith declared, just very timely for us in Nigeria.
Yes.
That we have to learn to discern our faith, to grow in it, and then to allow that faith to enlighten us, especially in moments of critical decision making.
Now, you're working in the seminary, with junior seminary, with the junior seminarians.
Yes.
If I understand correctly, the faith is exploding. Not the faith, well, the faith too, but the vocations are growing very rapidly.
Yes.
I'm not sure if the figure is correct, but somebody mentioned to me something like 11,000 seminarians in Nigeria, which for we in the West, when we're, a country is happy with, 50 or 150, it's 11,000. To what do you attribute this explosion of vocations, and how does the church, limited in its financial possibilities and its ability to respond, you must be turning away young people left and right?
Well, you see, the growth of vocation is based on the faith of the people. The faith is becoming stronger. Families also, to some extent, because of the faith, are becoming stronger. They have their challenges, but the faith is also helping the family. So the Catholic families, or even the non-Catholic families whose children embrace the faith, they are becoming stronger. The faith of the people, of the community, becoming stronger, and so it is bearing fruit in terms of vocation, and that's why it's growing. And at times, in some parts of Nigeria, some seminaries have to overflow into new ones because they don't know what to do with the crowd, because the crowd is too much and some seminaries to train, so they have to open new ones. So, and in our own diocese, initially, when we started our junior seminary, I started a junior seminary 10 years ago. Bishop came in during our first graduation and the second to tell the students, if you are not here in order to go on to the senior seminary, you better reconsider your stay here. He preached to them. Now they're responding in great numbers. Then the bishop is afraid again. How do I train them? Because of the constraints.
Yes.
So the faith is there, the vocation is growing, but then the constraint is also there.
And what about the quality of students? I mean, some might suggest and say, it's a lot of students coming because they get a free education, they get perhaps a room and board, and maybe for a young man who is not so well off, there might be the suggestion that he would go into the seminary to receive a good education and then leave. How do you discern and make this judgment early on enough to allow the good ones who have a true vocation, let's say, to come in?
Actually, we always work on vocation discernment. In some dioceses, they even have vocation teams. In my diocese, I'm a member of the vocation team. Great number comes in, then they have to be assessed, critically assessed. At times, you find about 60 coming in, and then at the end of the day, you end up having maybe 15 or 10, which means there's serious discernment. You turn so many away so that you get that quality. And even when they commence the training itself, some of them, in the course of their journey, they even decide their vocation themselves in the course of the journey. It's not everybody that goes into the senior seminary that's eventually ordained a priest. Because some of them will discover that, oh, no, this is not where I belong. So they decide to live on their own. And at times, even the formators will have to tell them, okay, having accompanied on this journey, we have discovered that you don't have the vocation. And many have been asked to live like that. So there's discernment, both on the part of the candidates, but also on the part of the formators and other vocation directors.
It requires a lot of prayer and discernment.
A lot of prayers.
Can imagine trying to make a decision about the future of a young man.
It's not easy. I have been involved myself, and at times it's not easy. At times to turn away someone who might have the vocation, or leave someone who might not have the vocation, but at the end of the day, We leave everything to the Lord. The Lord knows.
The Lord knows.
Yeah.
Father, you're the Jalingo diocese borders north and south. It's in the central area of Nigeria. We talked briefly about the question of the Muslim-Christian dialogue, relationships. In the north, there are some problems, of course, with Boko Haram and the radicalization. Do you feel this also in your diocese, or up to now, is this not so much of an issue for you?
Yeah, it's an issue in the north, especially in the northeast, where I come from. Taraba State is one of the states in the northeast. We are just fortunate that we are not as hit as other states, where the federal government even declared a state of emergency today, but apart from our own states. Somehow the Lord, I think, has been kind to us.
Yes.
The radicals, they operate in those neighboring states. And in our own state, it is there. It is there, but it's not pronounced. Maybe perhaps because the Christians there are in the majority. Okay. There are a great number of the locals, the indigenes of our state that are Christians, right. Catholics, Protestants. And so because maybe they feel they are not in the majority, so they are piping low. They are not expressed their radicality the way they do it in other places.
And how does the church respond to this question? How do you create an environment of dialogue so that you find that you isolate the radical element and work together with the moderate Muslim or the Muslim who is willing to dialogue?
Actually, in our place, we used to organize seminars, even the diocese, that involve the youth from both parties, that is the Christian group and the Muslim group. Our bishops, my previous bishops and even the present one, they have done it severally, bringing the Christians and the Muslims together in a workshop or in the seminar to dialogue together in order to find a way of living together despite our differences. And even in terms of relationship, in fact, despite all the things that happen, in most cases, Christians do not retaliate. They let go. In order to teach them that our faith is not in favor of violence, but rather in favor of peace.
And is this understood? I mean, the very radical, you'll never.
The very radical ones might not understand, but the other ones, the majority of the Muslims will know that the Christian methodology of responding to Christ is different from their own.
To forgive.
To forgive. That Christians forgive easier than them. And they know that very well. Many
missionaries, of course, have been accused of coming and stripping away the local culture and implanting Christianity at the expense of the local culture, much to the detriment of the local society. How do you, for example, as a priest, try and find what is good and discern what is not good and separate the two?
Well, there's so much good in our culture, in the African culture. Their language, their music, their relationships, the extended family system, a broad-based kind of relationship that helps them, especially in moments of need, that they're able to reach out to support, to express their solidarity. For me, that's something that's very great in African culture. Mm-hmm. There's intimate communication and relationship. Life itself is very rich. They are not really rich in terms of material things, but in terms of living and relating, they are really very rich.
Father, if you were to try and identify one or two priorities for your diocese, what would they be?
The first one for me, education. The second one for me will still be education. Formation. Education of the younger ones, formation of those who are already grown, especially the priests, further training. For me, that would be the priority. The first one, education. The second one, formation. That's follow up from what you already have. For me, that is the future. That is the future of our diocese, the future of the North, the future of Christianity in our country.
And not only the country, but with so many seminarians, it's a wealth for the universal church.
Definitely, definitely. I believe strongly in that.
Father Mark, thank you very much for having been with us today on our program.
I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
For giving this big opportunity to interact with Church in Need.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today on our program, Where God Weeps. And if you'd like to know more about the work of Father Mark in the Diocese of Jalingo in Nigeria, I would encourage you to look at the contact information, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.